Welcome to our channel Inspirational People. Today, we are back with an exciting video of the legend. Imagine a world without words, where emotions speak louder than dialogue and a simple smile can break down barriers. Laughter could shine through. Chaplin's rise wasn't easy. Abandoned by his father and forced to care for his mentally ill mother, young Charlie faced homelessness, hunger, and endless rejection. Yet, instead of breaking him, those struggles ignited something powerful within him, a deep understanding of human nature that would become the heartbeat of his art. His iconic character, the Tramp, wasn't just a figure of fun, he was a reflection of the everyday person, stumbling through life with resilience, kindness, and an unshakable will to keep moving forward. This is the extraordinary story of Charlie Chaplin, a man who proved that even life's harshest blows can become the foundation for something beautiful. His journey reminds us that no matter where we start, we all have the power to turn our pain into purpose and maybe even make the world laugh along the way. Charlie Chaplin's story begins not in the glow of a stage spotlight, but in the dim, soot-stained streets of Victorian London, a world where poverty wasn't just common, it was suffocating. Born on April 16, 1889, in a working-class neighborhood called Walworth, Chaplin's earliest memories were filled with hardship. His parents, Charles Chaplin Sr. and Hannah Chaplin, were both stage performers, a profession that promised glamour but rarely delivered stability. Charlie's father was a talented vocalist, known for his commanding presence in London's music halls. But success in entertainment often came hand in hand with temptation, and Charles Sr. succumbed to alcoholism. His drinking spiraled out of control, leaving Hannah to raise Charlie and his half-brother, Sidney, largely on her own. Hannah Chaplin, affectionately known as Lily Harley on stage, was a gifted performer in her own right. She adored her sons, filling their lives with songs and stories when times were tough. But as work became harder to find and her health declined, she struggled to keep food on the table. Poverty soon engulfed the Chaplin family. They moved constantly, hopping between run-down apartments and grimy boarding houses. At times, there was no money for heat, and the family went to bed shivering. Meals were scarce, and Charlie later recalled nights spent listening to his mother sob quietly in the darkness. Despite their grim circumstances, Hannah remained a powerful influence in Charlie's life. When she wasn't working, she entertained her sons with vivid performances at home, singing songs, mimicking neighbors, and acting out scenes from everyday life. Hannah's gift for storytelling captivated young Charlie, who watched her closely. These moments of joy stood in stark contrast to the hardship they faced. Unknowingly, Hannah was shaping Charlie's ability to connect with audiences through subtle facial expressions and body language, skills that would later define his silent film career. But Hannah's strength could only carry her so far. Her mental health began to deteriorate, and soon her outbursts and hallucinations became more frequent. By the time Charlie was 7, his mother could no longer care for him and Sidney. The boys were sent to the Lambeth Workhouse, a grim institution that provided shelter to London's poorest families. Life in the workhouse was cold, harsh, and humiliating. Children were separated from their parents, forced to follow strict routines, and treated like prisoners. Charlie felt abandoned and terrified, but even in those bleak surroundings, he found moments of escape. He would watch the other boys closely, studying their mannerisms, the way they walked, their nervous tics, and their laughter. These observations would later become the foundation of his brilliant character work on screen. When Hannah's condition worsened, she was committed to a mental institution. Charlie and Sidney were left to fend for themselves, scraping together whatever they could to survive. At just 5 years old, Charlie had his first taste of performing when Hannah fell ill during a theater show. Struggling to sing, she was forced to leave the stage. In a bold move, Charlie, barely more than a toddler, stepped in. The audience chuckled as the young boy sang a popular tune with unexpected confidence. That brief performance lit a spark in Charlie. Even as life dragged him through hardship, the memory of those laughs stayed with him, a reminder that performance could offer a way out. Through it all, Charlie found strength in his brother, Sidney. Despite being only a few years older, Sidney became Charlie's protector, a guiding figure who kept him grounded during their most desperate years. Sidney eventually joined the British Navy, but before leaving, he encouraged Charlie to pursue a career in acting. He knew that Charlie's gift for comedy and mimicry could be his escape from poverty. Charlie's early life, marked by hunger, loss, and uncertainty, became the foundation for his future creativity. The vulnerability he experienced helped him develop empathy for the struggling, working-class characters he would later portray. His understanding of human suffering gave the Tramp more than just humor, it gave him heart. Charlie's ability to turn his personal pain into universal comedy was no accident. It was born from the survival instincts he had sharpened on the streets of London. The boy who once begged for pennies and dodged cruel landlords had learned that laughter could soften even the harshest realities. Little did he know that those early lessons would one day make him one of the most beloved entertainers the world had ever known. By the time Charlie Chaplin reached his early teens, life had taught him hard lessons about survival. Hunger, homelessness, and heartbreak were familiar companions. Yet even in those darkest moments, Charlie clung to one constant, his love for performance. He had seen how a song, a story, or a laugh could briefly lift the weight of hardship. Deep down, he knew that if he could master that magic, he might escape the cycle of poverty that had defined his life. Charlie's first steps into professional performance began with small roles in local music halls. These popular venues were filled with rowdy working-class crowds, and the pressure to entertain was immense. The slightest misstep could trigger jeers or even flying objects from the audience. But Charlie thrived. In his early teens, he joined the 8 Lancashire Lads, a popular children's dance troupe. The group specialized in energetic clog dancing, a physically demanding routine that required precision and timing. While Charlie's talent shone through, it wasn't enough. Dancing paid little, and Charlie longed to stand out as a solo performer. What set him apart was his ability to observe people. He watched London's streets carefully, studying the swagger of a drunken man, the nervous shuffle of a street vendor, or the exaggerated gestures of a flustered gentleman. These observations became part of his comedic arsenal. In 1908, at just 19 years old, Charlie earned a spot in Fred Karno's prestigious comedy troupe, a breakthrough that would shape his career. Karno's company was famous for physical comedy, chaotic slapstick routines, and precise comedic timing. For Charlie, it was the perfect training ground. Under Karno's mentorship, Chaplin developed his skills as a master of mime, learning to express complex emotions without words. His performances combined exaggerated physicality with subtle facial expressions, creating a unique style that would later define his silent film persona. By 1910, Charlie had earned a key role in Karno's traveling show, A Night in an English Music Hall. The troupe embarked on a tour of the United States, where audiences were instantly captivated by Charlie's comic brilliance. His ability to command attention with the simplest movements, a tilt of the head, a twitch of his mustache, marked him as a rare talent. During this tour, Hollywood noticed. In 1913, while still touring with Karno's troupe, Charlie caught the attention of Mack Sennett, the influential head of Keystone Studios. Sennett, known for his fast-paced slapstick comedies, believed Charlie's expressive face and natural comedic timing could translate to film. He offered Charlie a contract for $150 a week, a generous sum for a young performer from the London slums. Charlie accepted, packed his bags, and set out to make his mark in the burgeoning film industry. Charlie's early Keystone films were chaotic and unscripted, relying heavily on wild chases and exaggerated gags. But something remarkable happened on the set of Mabel's Strange Predicament, 1914. Tasked with creating a character on the spot, Charlie threw together an eccentric outfit, oversized trousers, a tight-fitting jacket, floppy shoes, a bowler hat, and a cane. And with that, the Tramp was born. The character's genius lay in contradiction. The Tramp's shabby clothes suggested poverty, yet he walked with dignity. His playful nature masked deep loneliness. He was clumsy yet clever, foolish yet wise. The Tramp wasn't just a comedy character, he was a reflection of the everyday man, navigating life's struggles with resilience and heart. Audiences adored him. Within a year, Charlie Chaplin became one of the most recognizable faces in the world. Chaplin's rapid rise to fame gave him leverage, and he demanded creative control. By 1915, he was writing and directing his own films, carefully crafting each gag, movement, and expression. His attention to detail was legendary. Chaplin would sometimes shoot hundreds of takes for a single scene until he felt it was perfect. His early films like The Tramp, 1915, The Pawnshop, 1916, and Easy Street, 1917, blended slapstick with moments of tenderness, a formula that resonated deeply with audiences. But Charlie's ambitions stretched beyond comedy. He believed film could tell powerful stories, ones that revealed human vulnerability, injustice, and resilience. By 1919, Chaplin had become frustrated with studio control over his work. Determined to create films on his own terms, he joined forces with fellow legends Mary Pickford, Douglas Fairbanks, and D.W. Griffith to form United Artists, a groundbreaking move that gave Chaplin full creative freedom. With this newfound independence, Chaplin began crafting films that were deeper, richer, and more socially conscious. His next films elevated comedy to an art form. In The Kid, 1921, Chaplin combined humor with heartache in the story of a poor man caring for an abandoned child, a deeply personal reflection of his own childhood struggles. In The Gold Rush, 1925, he turned a tale of survival in the frozen Yukon into a masterpiece of visual comedy. The iconic bread roll dance, where Chaplin used dinner rolls as dancing feet, remains one of cinema's most celebrated moments. By blending comedy with themes of poverty, loneliness, and resilience, Chaplin created a character the world adored. The Tramp's struggles mirrored the struggles of millions, and his ability to smile through hardship gave audiences hope. Chaplin's success was no accident. He poured his heart into every frame, demanding perfection from himself and his cast. His films took longer to produce than those of his peers, but the results were unforgettable. Yet fame didn't make Chaplin forget his roots. The boy who once roamed the streets of London still shaped his work. He knew what it felt like to be powerless, and he dedicated his art, provoke, and uplift. Determined to create meaningful stories, Chaplin began crafting films that blended humor with powerful emotional depth, a revolutionary concept in an industry still fixated on fast-paced gags and mindless spectacle. Chaplin's first full-length feature, The Kid, was a deeply personal project and a risk. Combining humor with raw emotion, the film told the story of the tramp caring for an abandoned child. In one of the film's most powerful scenes, authorities attempt to separate the tramp from his adopted son. Chaplin, with tears streaming down his face, clings desperately to the boy, fighting to keep the only family he has ever known. The moment was heartbreakingly real because for Chaplin, it was drawn from experience. Having endured separation from his mother, the pain of workhouses, and the fear of abandonment, Chaplin knew how to tap into those emotions on screen. Audiences wept and laughed in equal measure. The Kid became a massive success, proving that comedy could carry emotional weight. Chaplin's next masterpiece, The Gold Rush, transformed hardship into humor. Inspired by stories of desperate prospectors during the Klondike Gold Rush, Chaplin turned themes of starvation and survival into moments of unforgettable comedy. In one iconic scene, the tramp, facing starvation, boils his leather shoe for dinner. With delicate precision, he twirls the laces like spaghetti, savoring each bite with exaggerated elegance, a hilarious yet heartbreaking reminder of hunger's desperation. Another famous moment, the bread roll dance, showcased Chaplin's mastery of visual storytelling. Using 2 dinner rolls skewered on forks, he transformed a simple meal into an elegant ballet, winning over audiences worldwide. Chaplin later claimed The Gold Rush was the film he wanted to be remembered for, a testament to his ability to turn human struggle into universal laughter. By the late 1920s, Hollywood had embraced sound with the arrival of talkies. Studios rushed to replace silent films with dialogue-driven scripts. Yet Chaplin resisted. He believed silent cinema's universal language, gestures, emotions, and visual storytelling was too powerful to abandon. Determined to prove silence still had a place, Chaplin spent over 2 years crafting City Lights. The film tells the story of the tramp's love for a blind flower girl who mistakes him for a wealthy gentleman. The film's unforgettable ending, where the tramp nervously reveals his identity to the now-sighted flower girl, remains one of cinema's most emotional moments. As she touches his hand, realizing he's the man who saved her, the tramp's smile, tender yet vulnerable, is filled with hope and heartbreak. Audiences adored City Lights, and critics hailed it as a triumph. Even in an industry dominated by sound, Chaplin's silent masterpiece resonated louder than words. As the Great Depression gripped the world, Chaplin turned his attention to social issues. Modern Times depicted the tramp battling dehumanizing factory work, poverty, and injustice, a powerful commentary on industrialization's toll on the working class. In one famous scene, the tramp is swallowed by a massive assembly line, his tiny body trapped in the relentless gears of machinery. The sequence, equal parts comedy and tragedy, captured the crushing reality of economic hardship for millions. Though largely silent, Modern Times famously marked the first time Chaplin's voice was heard on screen. In the film's final scene, the tramp sings a nonsensical song filled with gibberish, a moment of defiance that mocked the obsession with dialogue in Hollywood. The film ends with the tramp and his companion walking hand in hand down a dusty road, facing an uncertain future yet still hopeful. As war loomed in Europe, Chaplin risked everything by creating The Great Dictator, a daring satire that openly mocked Adolf Hitler and fascism. In the film, Chaplin played dual roles: a ruthless dictator named Adinard Hinkle, a parody of Hitler, and a humble Jewish barber. Through sharp humor and biting commentary, Chaplin condemned the rise of tyranny and hatred. The film's final speech, delivered by the barber posing as the dictator, remains one of the most powerful moments in cinema. Chaplin abandoned comedy to deliver a heartfelt plea for peace, compassion, and humanity. We think too much and feel too little. More than machinery, we need humanity. More than cleverness, we need kindness and gentleness. The speech resonated deeply during a time of global conflict. While some criticized Chaplin's political boldness, The Great Dictator became his most successful film, a courageous stand for justice in the face of oppression. Despite his professional triumphs, Chaplin's personal life became increasingly turbulent. His relationships with younger women, multiple failed marriages, and outspoken political views made him a controversial figure. During the Red Scare in the 1950s, Chaplin's outspoken support for social justice drew suspicion. Accused of communist sympathies, he faced intense scrutiny from the FBI. In 1952, while traveling to Europe for a film premiere, Chaplin was denied re-entry to the United States. Exiled from Hollywood, he settled in Switzerland with his family. Though the world seemed to have turned on him, Chaplin refused to let bitterness consume him. Instead, he channeled his energy into new creative pursuits. In exile, Chaplin created Limelight, a deeply personal film about an aging comedian struggling to find his place in a changing world. The story mirrored Chaplin's own life, once adored, now forgotten. The film's emotional depth resonated with those who remembered Chaplin's early years. Though released during his exile, Limelight was later recognized as one of his most moving works. By the 1940s, Charlie Chaplin was not just a movie star, he was an icon. His films had charmed millions, and the tramp had become a universal symbol of resilience, hope, and humor. But as Chaplin's fame grew, so did public scrutiny. His outspoken political views, controversial relationships, and willingness to challenge societal norms placed him in the crosshairs of powerful critics and ultimately turned his life upside down. Chaplin's films had always carried social commentary, but after The Great Dictator, 1940, he became more vocal about his beliefs. He condemned fascism, advocated for the working class, and championed social justice. These views, however, clashed with rising political tensions in the United States. During the post-World War II Red Scare, anyone suspected of left-leaning views faced public hostility. Chaplin's calls for peace and unity, once praised, were now viewed with suspicion. Critics claimed he sympathized with communists, a dangerous accusation in Cold War America. The FBI, under J. Edgar Hoover, opened a file on Chaplin, closely monitoring his speeches, films, and personal life. The man who once symbolized joy and innocence was now branded a potential threat. Chaplin's personal life also fueled controversy. In 1943, a young actress named Joan Barry accused Chaplin of fathering her child. Though blood tests later proved Chaplin was not the father, the scandal dominated headlines. The trial painted Chaplin as immoral, and newspapers eagerly fanned the flames. Conservative groups called for boycotts of his films, claiming he was corrupting American values. The combination of public scandal and political suspicion left Chaplin increasingly isolated. In 1952, Chaplin sailed to Europe for the premiere of his film Limelight. While aboard the ship, U.S. Authorities revoked his re-entry permit, effectively exiling him from the country where he had built his career. The accusations of communism, combined with moral outrage from his personal life, had turned the American public against him. After decades of success, Chaplin found himself cast out. For Chaplin, the betrayal was devastating but not defeating. He settled in Corsia-sur-Vivi, Switzerland, with his wife Una and their children. Far from Hollywood's limelight, Chaplin shifted his focus to writing, composing music, and reflecting on his journey. Though banished from the United States, Chaplin continued to create. In 1957, he released A King in New York, a satirical film that mocked American paranoia and the culture of fear that had driven him from the country. The film's biting social critique revealed Chaplin's frustration but also his enduring commitment to truth. In 1967, he returned to filmmaking one final time with A Countess from Hong Kong, starring Marlon Brando and Sophia Loren. Though the film received mixed reviews, it marked Chaplin's farewell to cinema, a career that had stretched over 5 decades. Time softened public opinion, and by the 1970s, Chaplin's contributions to cinema were impossible to ignore. In 1972, after 20 years in exile, Chaplin was invited back to America to receive an honorary Academy Award. When Chaplin walked onto the stage at the Oscars, the crowd erupted in a standing ovation, one that lasted for over 12 minutes, the longest in Academy Award history. Tears welled in Chaplin's eyes as the audience showered him with the love that had once seemed lost. "Words are so futile," Chaplin whispered during his speech. "I can only say thank you." It was a moment of vindication, a reminder that despite the controversies, Chaplin's true legacy was his ability to make people laugh, feel, and hope. Chaplin spent his later years quietly in Switzerland, surrounded by his wife and 8 children. He wrote his autobiography, reflecting on his extraordinary journey from a childhood of poverty to global stardom. Despite the fame, Chaplin's heart remained with the people who had once been his audience, the working class, the forgotten, the outcasts. On Christmas Day in 1977, Charlie Chaplin passed away at the age of 88. His death marked the end of an era, but his influence continued to echo across generations. Chaplin's work transcended language, culture, and time. He had proven that comedy could touch the soul, that laughter could be both an escape and a weapon against despair. His films reminded audiences that kindness, compassion, and resilience could triumph over cruelty and hardship. From the gutters of Victorian London to the glittering stages of Hollywood, Chaplin's journey was more than a rags-to-riches tale, it was a testament to the power of the human spirit. Today, Charlie Chaplin's face, with its battered bowler hat, twirling cane, and unforgettable smile, continues to remind the world that even in life's darkest moments, there is room for laughter, hope, and love. That's the inspirational story of Charlie Chaplin. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel Inspirational People to help us make more videos like this.